to a mysterious case unfolding in Oklahoma tonight. A 911 call coming in overnight, no voice heard on it.
11:30 last night, the 911 call comes in. It's silent. No one on the line. When police arrive to investigate, they see two young men running out of the back door of the home. Canines soon track down 18-year-old Robert Bever and his 16-year-old brother in the woods behind the home. Inside, horror. 5 members of the brothers' family found stabbed to death. Their parents, David and April Bever, their 12 and 17-year-old brothers, and their 5-year-old sister.
In the summer of 2015, the unassuming calm of a modest home in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, concealed a darkness so profound it defied every expectation of suburban tranquility. What appeared to be an ordinary household became the epicenter of a nightmare that shattered lives and left a community questioning how isolation and unchecked influences could culminate in unthinkable horror. At the heart of this tragedy was the Bever family, a unit defined by both seclusion and a disturbing undercurrent of control. David and April Bever, the parents of 7 children, maintained a life steeped in privacy behind a fortress of overgrown trees and deliberate isolation. Though many families cherish quiet moments away from the public eye, the Bever household was far removed from normalcy. Their insistence on homeschooling and limited social contact served not only as a means to protect their children, but also, as later revelations would suggest, to imprison them in an environment where fear and repression quietly festered. In this insular world, the seeds of a deadly obsession took root. For brothers Robert and Michael Bever, the internet was not just a tool for information, it became an endless repository of violence and infamy. Robert, at 18 years old, spent countless hours poring over accounts of notorious mass murders, fixating on events such as the Columbine shooting and the Aurora theater attack. Far from a harmless curiosity, his research morphed into an obsession with the idea of being remembered for something monumental, a desire to etch his name into infamy, a dark aspiration that would come to dictate his every thought. Michael, only 16 and still struggling to grasp the complexities of adolescence, was quickly drawn into his older brother's vortex. Impressed by Robert's unabashed fascination and seduced by the promise of notoriety, Michael's impressionable mind began to mirror a path that was as dangerous as it was premeditated. Together, the two brothers began crafting a plan that was both methodical and chilling in its ambition, a plan they referred to in hushed tones as their murder spree. By 2015, their twisted scheme had crystallized into a meticulously detailed plot. The goal was as audacious as it was horrifying: to murder every member of their own family, commandeer the family car, and embark on a cross-country rampage that would ultimately claim the lives of 50 individuals. In their warped minds, this rampage would not only serve as a final act of defiance, but would also secure their place in history as architects of a legacy built on bloodshed and infamy. On the fateful night of July 22, 2015, the boundary between fantasy and reality disintegrated in a manner that still haunts those who recall it. The evening began like any other in the sheltered confines of the Bever residence. Yet behind closed doors, a meticulously orchestrated plan was about to unfold. In a scene that could have been lifted straight from the darkest corners of a horror film, 13-year-old Crystal, unaware of the sinister machinations that had long been brewing, entered the shared bedroom of Robert and Michael. There, amidst body armor and an array of knives laid out with eerie precision on the bed, the brothers stood ready to execute their plan. Before Crystal could process the surreal terror of the moment, Robert launched a brutal attack. With a merciless swing, he slashed at her throat and drove his knife deep multiple times. A display of violence so extreme that it defied ordinary human comprehension. In a desperate bid for survival, Crystal managed to break free, her screams reverberating through the silent night as she fled the scene. But the unfolding nightmare was far from over. The initial assault quickly escalated into further carnage. April Bever, the mother who had long been ensnared in the oppressive dynamics of her own making, rushed to intervene upon hearing the commotion. In a heartless reversal of maternal protection, Robert turned his lethal focus on her, inflicting nearly 50 savage stabs in a moment that would forever stain the family's legacy. This act of violence was not impulsive but calculated, a cruel punctuation mark in a chapter defined by isolation and repressed fury. While Robert's ferocity left a trail of blood and despair, Michael's actions were marked by a disturbingly calm precision. After the attack on Crystal, Michael dragged her back into the house, as if the act itself were part of a prearranged script, rather than a desperate move in the throes of panic. Convinced by their own twisted logic that the worst was over, the brothers then set their sights on the remaining vulnerable members of the family. In one of the most harrowing sequences of that night, 7-year-old Christopher and 5-year-old Victoria, who had taken refuge in a cramped bathroom, were lured out by Michael's feigned helplessness. Their attempts to hide were ruthlessly quashed as the brothers descended upon them with a cold, methodical cruelty. Amid the chaos, 12-year-old Daniel managed to barricade himself in a room and, with trembling desperation, dialed 911. His whispered pleas for help, uttered in a voice quivering with fear, offered a stark contrast to the clinical precision of the violence unfolding around him. Yet even this small beacon of hope was extinguished when Michael, employing deception with chilling ease, convinced Daniel to open the door, thereby sealing his tragic fate. By the time the first responders arrived, the devastation was unmistakable. 5 members of the Bever family, David, April, Daniel, Christopher, and Victoria, had been brutally slain. In an almost surreal twist of fate, Crystal, though grievously injured, managed to feign death long enough to escape, while 2-year-old Autumn was discovered unharmed, sleeping in her crib as if the horror had been but a distant nightmare. The immediate aftermath saw the brothers attempting to flee the scene. However, their escape was short-lived as law enforcement, tracking them into the dense woods behind the house, intercepted their flight. When brought in for questioning, both Robert and Michael exuded an unnerving lack of remorse. Robert's confession was delivered with a disquieting smile, a grin that seemed to relish the notoriety of his deeds, and he spoke with a detached pride about his actions, as though he had been performing a well-rehearsed monologue rather than recounting an act of savage brutality. A notebook discovered in their bedroom provided further insight into their deranged minds. Within its pages were detailed accounts of every aspect of their plan, from the motivations rooted in a desire for infamy to the logistics of a cross-country massacre. Plans to document their deeds on video, intended for an audience they believed would hail them as legends of violence, were laid out in meticulous detail. This diary of destruction underscored the cold, calculated nature of their enterprise and hinted at a long incubation period of dark obsession. The interrogation that followed this massacre transformed the sterile confines of the questioning room into a stage for one of the most chilling performances ever witnessed by investigators.
You want to do it? I don't want to do it. I didn't, just because I didn't kill anyone.
Okay.
I stabbed someone.
Who did you stab?
My younger brother, Christopher.
Christopher. How old's Christopher?
9, I think.
What'd you stab him with?
My knife.
What's your knife look like?
It's green, kind of like camouflage, honestly, like with.
On where your hand goes or where the blade is? It's camouflage.
Michael, with a demeanor as calm and detached as if he were describing an ordinary day's events, methodically recounted the sequence of the night's horrors. Each detail was delivered in a tone devoid of any hint of emotion, a recitation that belied the enormity of the acts he had helped commit. One detective later reflected, "Listening to Michael was like hearing someone describe a routine errand, not the dismemberment of a family." His words, precise and unflinching, created an atmosphere in the room that was as suffocating as it was surreal, leaving those present to grapple with the unfathomable normalcy of his tone.
Wrong, but I would think that as you guys plan this out, you had maybe more specific plans, like Robert was going to kill this person and you were going to kill. So who were you supposed to kill?
I was supposed to take my pistol crossbow. Who was supposed to shank his son. She was supposed to die quietly. Yeah, she was going to be the first one, she was. And then Robert would go in, slit Mom's throat, push her over with him, and both go in and kill Victoria.
Because they were supposed to be like quiet, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to go with it. And then I would go upstairs and shoot David, Dad, and the guy with my pistol crossbow, which would kill him. And then Robert would go over and kill.
Okay.
So did you use your crossbow at all?
No. The only time I ever heard anybody was when I stabbed Christopher in the neck.
As the investigation unfolded, the courtroom became the next arena in which the full scope of the brothers' depravity was laid bare. Both Robert and Michael faced 5 counts of first-degree murder and an additional charge of assault and battery with intent to kill. Despite their youth, the heinous nature of their crimes necessitated that they be tried as adults, a decision that sent shockwaves through both the legal community and the public at large. In a move that underscored the finality of his actions, 18-year-old Robert eventually accepted a plea deal, resulting in 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. His acceptance of responsibility, delivered with a disturbing air of satisfaction, sealed his fate as a permanent inmate of a system determined to hold him accountable. Michael's case, however, took a markedly different turn. At 16, he adamantly refused any plea deal, insisting on his innocence despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. In his testimony, Michael claimed that he had been coerced by his older brother, a claim so unsettling that even the courtroom was left reeling from its implications. In an extraordinary twist during the trial, Robert himself testified in Michael's defense, affirming that Michael had acted out of fear under Robert's manipulative influence. The revelations of alleged abuse within the household, corroborated by testimony from surviving family members, painted a grim picture of an environment dominated by control and terror. Nevertheless, the court ultimately rejected Michael's assertions, convicting him on the same charges and sentencing him to 5 consecutive life sentences without parole. The consequences of that dreadful night did not end with the verdict. Behind the walls of correctional facilities, the darkness that had been unleashed continued to manifest. Robert's violent proclivities did not diminish behind bars. He was involved in an attack on 2 prison guards, a stark reminder that the capacity for brutality can persist even in confinement. In a further demonstration of his volatile nature, Robert attempted to take his own life in July 2016, fashioning a noose from a bedsheet before being placed on suicide watch. Today, he remains at the Joseph Harp Correctional Center, his life a permanent testament to the irreversible path he chose on that fateful night. Michael, similarly, endures his sentence at the Lexington Correctional Center. His incarceration serves as a continual, painful reminder of the destructive legacy wrought by the Bever brothers. A legacy that has left an indelible scar on the community and sparked endless questions about the nature of evil. How does a family so deeply isolated and controlled produce individuals capable of such cold calculation and brutality? And could there have been a chance, however slim, for intervention before the darkness consumed them entirely? Amid the overwhelming despair, there's shown a fragile light of hope in the survival of 2 siblings. Crystal, who endured unimaginable trauma that night, and 2-year-old Autumn found new beginnings when they were adopted into a nurturing family that offered the care and love so desperately lacking in their previous existence. Their survival, while a testament to resilience, also serves as a somber reminder that even in the depths of horror, the spark of life can endure. The physical site of this tragedy, the home in Broken Arrow, has itself become a potent symbol of the community's collective grief and the hope for renewal. Initially earmarked for reclamation by local authorities, the property was slated to be transformed into a park, a space meant to foster healing and remembrance. Yet, in an almost symbolic act of destruction, the house was engulfed in flames in 2017 under mysterious circumstances, with arson suspected as the cause. Ultimately, in March 2019, the site was reborn as the Bever Family First Responders Memorial Park. This memorial now stands as both a tribute to the lives brutally cut short and a homage to the first responders who, in the face of overwhelming horror, risked everything to restore order in the aftermath. So what lessons emerge from this nightmare? The harrowing saga of the Bever family forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about isolation, control, and the unchecked influence of digital obsessions. How did a household already shrouded in secrecy and rigidity become the breeding ground for such unthinkable violence? Were the warning signs, years of seclusion, extreme parental control, and the dangerous allure of online notoriety, ignored until it was too late? And perhaps most importantly, what measures can society implement to identify and intervene before young minds are irrevocably twisted by darkness? This tragic narrative is not merely a chronicle of lost lives and unspeakable brutality. It is a cautionary tale of how isolation and unchecked influences can merge to create a recipe for disaster. In an age where the digital world offers both unprecedented access to information and a perilous playground for extremist ideas, the Bever brothers' descent into violence underscores the urgent need for vigilance, early intervention, and a compassionate support system for those teetering on the edge. The legacy of that summer night in Broken Arrow remains a painful reminder that even within seemingly ordinary communities, the seeds of devastation can take root unnoticed. The chilling calm with which Michael recounted his actions, the calculated cruelty exhibited by both brothers, and the meticulous planning detailed in their hidden notebook compel us to ask, could timely intervention have steered these young lives away from the abyss? Were the early signals of a brewing storm dismissed as mere eccentricities? And as we grapple with these questions, how can society fortify itself against the hidden perils that lie behind closed doors? In the final analysis, the Bever case stands as an enduring warning, a testament to the catastrophic consequences when isolation, abuse, and digital obsession collide. It challenges each of us to reflect on our responsibility to recognize and address early signs of danger before they escalate into irreversible tragedy. As the community continues its long, arduous journey toward healing, and as the Memorial Park offers a space for remembrance and reflection, the questions persist. Can we as a society learn from this dark chapter? And are we truly prepared to confront the hidden darkness lurking in the corners of our lives? Share your thoughts on this chilling saga. Reflect on how vigilance, compassion, and proactive intervention might one day prevent another tragedy of this magnitude from unfolding. The story of the Bever family is a painful, unforgettable reminder that the warning signs of impending disaster are often right before our eyes. If only we have the courage to acknowledge them and act before it is too late.